What I have learned over the years has been my personal journey of forgiveness and redemption. I have learned to move through the dark places through my art and writing. In 1939, the Nazi machine was lighting the ovens, loading the machine guns, and the killing fields of Europe were soaked with the blood of my people, the blood of the gypsies, the homosexuals, the disabled, the fringes of society, even priests who were against all of this horrible, horrible time. They went to prison, they went to camp, and anyone who was against the Nazi machine. So on one side of the globe, 1939, you had the Holocaust. On the other side of the globe in America, you had two Jewish immigrants who were cartoonists, who invented and created Superman. Today, in 2016, what happens on one side of the globe affects the other. We live in an age of technology where we know in real time what is happening anywhere on this globe that has an internet connection. We should no longer sit comfortably in a cafe in Albuquerque while people are being killed in a cafe in Paris by a suicide bomber. We should no longer sit comfortably when we hear of a mass shooting in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I can no longer sit quietly when I hear gunshots coming from my neighborhood in downtown Albuquerque. In 1939, what happened on one side of the world eventually did affect the other side. But at the time, people turned their ears to silent. People looked away. People who were once close to Jews and did business with Jews, when the war broke out, they were then able to do the most horrible, horrible things, horrible acts of violence and hatred. We cannot turn our ears off. We cannot put blinders on. What happens in Europe affects us. What happens along our borders affects us. What happens in our neighborhoods affects each and every one of us. People always talk about the warning signs of any tragedy, and we've heard this earlier, and they talk about it after the fact. The topic of warning signs has historically given prudence to countless books, essays, and films. After the many tragedies that we have seen in this country, whether within our schools, within our cities, or acts of terrorism, there is always the dialogue of the red flags that were ignored or not taken seriously. We will heed the warning signs when we pay closer attention to our families, to our children, to our neighbors, to our cities. We will heed the warning signs when we become more involved as citizens of this country. Everyone here today and in the streets and alleyways and farmlands across the cities and beyond has an important role to play in the protection of human rights for all. Please, please, please be mindful of human rights. Please be mindful of the person next to you. Please be mindful of the neighbor next to you, of the unrest in your cities and schools. Be mindful and don't be silent. Don't look away, don't look away. Every Holocaust genocide has its stories of survival.